welcome to another PIDS public webinar titled Expanding Water Access and Promoting Organic Farming for a Food Secure Philippines. I am Melinda Quinones, your host and moderator for today's session. This timely event is brought to you by the Philippine Institute for Development Studies, the government's primary socio-economic policy think tank. Today, we gather researchers, policymakers, development practitioners, and sectoral stakeholders to explore how improved irrigation and the promotion of organic farming can help strengthen our nation's food security, particularly in the face of climate change, dwindling resources, and agricultural challenges. So, in recent years, the twin challenges of limited water access and sustainable farming practices have significantly affected agricultural productivity in the Philippines. By addressing these issues through improved irrigation systems and the promotion of organic farming, we open up pathways not only for increased yields, but also for healthier ecosystems and communities. So, this webinar to uh, aims to highlight how better water governance and sustainable agriculture can work hand in hand to ensure long-term food security for the country. We will hear insights drawn from empirical studies and grounded experiences, focusing on water governance, irrigation systems, and the future of sustainable agriculture in the country. So, we invite you to stay engaged, ask questions, and take part in this rich dialogue. Okay? So, to officially begin this important conversation, please join me in giving a virtual round of applause as we welcome the newly installed president of the PIDS, Dr. Philip Arnold Tuano, for his opening remarks.
Good morning, Mel, and good morning, everyone. Thank you for inviting me to this presentation. I would like to extend a warm welcome to all our guests joining us virtually via Zoom and to our audience tuning in live via Facebook. Thank you for taking time to be part of this critical conversation on equitable water access and sustainable farming as we celebrate Rural Workers Month. Let me begin by acknowledging the presence of our esteemed speakers, discussants, and guests who have taken the time to join in this important discussion. Our presenters, all from the PIDS, Dr. Briones, Senior Research Fellow, Ms. Amerah Azis, Research Analyst, Ms. Helena Pastolero, the Project Technical Specialist, and Ms. Ivory Myka Galang, former Supervising Research Specialist. Our discussants, Dr. Virginia Cuevas, Professor Emeritus, College of Arts and Sciences, UP Los Baños, and Attorney Mary Annabel Cruz Domingo, Corporate Lawyer of the Legal Service of the National Irrigation Administration. Our guests, including the Department of Foreign Affairs Cultural Diplomacy Research Director Grace Villamayor, Congressional Policy and Budget Research Department Economic Policy Research Service Director Elsie Gutierrez, Department of Environment and Natural Resources Forest Management Bureau Chief Edna Nuestro, Department of Agriculture National Organic Agriculture Program Director Bernadette San Juan, Polytechnic University of the Philippines Department of Cooperatives and Social Development Chair Hilda San Gabriel, Action for Economic Reforms President Jessica Cantos, Alliance of Government Workers in the Water Sector Secretary General and President Emeritus Victor Chong, National Food Coalition President Aurea Macmiclat Teves, Peace Crops Executive Director Roberto de la Serna, Peace Pond Farmers Association President Jet Orbida, and all other colleagues from the national government, academe, local governments, the civil society sector, the representatives of our farmer, fisherfolk, and rural workers organizations, and all other stakeholders. As we all know, food and water security remain to be two of the most urgent development priorities in the country. As climate change disrupts rainfall patterns, population growth strains land and water resources, and traditional farming methods become less viable, the intersection of agricultural sustainability and equitable water access demands our immediate and focused attention. As we chart a course towards a more food secure and resilient future, we must acknowledge the vital role that agriculture, forestry, and fishing continue to play in our national economy. In 2023, for example, 11.193 million Filipinos were employed in these sectors, reflecting a 3.3% growth from the previous year. These workers now represent 23.2%, or almost a quarter of the country's total employed population, highlighting the importance of rural labor in our national workforce. Water resource challenges are also becoming more evident. The country's water use efficiency improved by 5.6% from 2022 to 2023, from around 211.05 to 222.81 pesos worth of economic output per cubic meter of fresh water used. While we see a positive national trend, the agriculture sector still lags far behind the service and industry sectors, underscoring the urgent need to modernize irrigation systems and invest in technologies that promote water efficiency in our farmlands. Agriculture remains the dominant user of self-abstracted fresh water or water taken from its natural source. From 2010 to 2011, an average of 98% of total abstraction came from lakes, artificial reservoirs, rivers, and streams, and the remaining 2% from groundwater reservoirs. On average, 98.7% of the abstracted water was for own use, while the remaining 1.3% was intended for distribution to other economic units. Meanwhile, a significant portion of national water withdrawals also go to non-consumptive hydropower, which, though not depleting water volumes, still shapes the availability and flow of water downstream. These insights highlight the need for updated monitoring systems and integrated water management approaches. Considering these water-related challenges, it is important to consider how climate vulnerabilities further compound this situation. A 2024 PIDS study reveals that agriculture accounts for 60% of all disaster-related damages, costing 44 billion pesos annually from 2012 to 2022. This report emphasizes that low-cost, high-impact technologies such as alternate wetting and lying rice paddies by digesters and precision farming must be prioritized to build resilience. It is equally crucial to address structural limitations within the sector. PIDS study on market state and in Philippine agriculture policy highlights that smallholder farms still dominate our agricultural landscape. While economies of scale do exist, cooperatives and formal farm structures have yet to deliver higher incomes or innovation. The study recommends shifting support away from generic price mechanisms towards expenditure-based programs such as extension services and market development that directly benefit small farmers. Given these overlapping concerns, from resource inefficiencies to systematic vulnerabilities, this webinar provides us with an opportunity to unpack these intersecting challenges, from inefficient water distribution and limited irrigation to shifting farming systems and the promise of sustainable agriculture. Today, we will hear the findings from two important PIDS studies. The first study, Repurposing Rights to Expand Public Access to Water, the case of the National Irrigation Administration, is authored by a PIDS Senior Research Fellow, Briones, and Research Analyst, Amerah, Azis. And this study examines how rethinking irrigation water rights and improving interagency coordination can improve water access for households. The second study prospects for widespread adoption of organic-based fertilizers in the Philippines, Rapid Appraisal by Dr. Briones, together with project technical specialists Helena, Pastolero, and former supervising research specialist Ivory, Myka, Galang, analyzes barriers to adoption, policy incentives, and what will it take to make organic fertilizers a scalable, sustainable norm in Philippine agriculture. We will also hear from experts whose studies shed light on the demographic, ecological, and economic dimensions of our water and food systems. I encourage everyone to join this important discussion. And as we celebrate Rural Workers Month, let us remember that our dialogue today is helping chart a course for our farmers, fisherfolk, and all rural laborers. Let us all anchor policy research as a cornerstone of food, water, secure Philippines, one that is sustainable, inclusive, and truly resilient para sa lahat ng mga Pilipino. Maraming salamat po at magandang umaga po sa lahat.
Maraming salamat, Dr. Tuanyo, for setting the stage for today's discussion. Para po sa mga nakikinig sa atin sa Zoom at sa Facebook Live, we encourage everyone to invite your friends, colleagues, or anyone who might benefit from today's topic. We are streaming live on Facebook, and later your friends and relatives may replay this video and still get an e-certificate. We will tell more about it as we go along with the program. So before we proceed, let us kick things off with a quick poll to hear your thoughts on today's topic. Yeah. So to participate, simply scan the QR code on your screen or click the link shared in the Zoom chat box. Nakikita niyo po ang link. Yan. So here's the question. What do you think is the most critical factor for improving public access to water and sustainable agriculture in the Philippines? I repeat, what do you think is the most critical factor for improving public access to water and sustainable agriculture in the Philippines? Multiple choice po ito. A. Institutional reforms. B. Government subsidies. C. Improved interagency coordination. Or D. Private sector involvement. Yan. Nakatahi po sa question na ito ang topics na i-discuss sa atin ng ating mga presenters. So we will explore more about this in today's session. While you are answering our poll, we are glad to share that currently we have 175 Zoom attendees and more than 20 viewers tuning in live on our Facebook page. So ngayon, tignan na natin ang result. Yan. So 23 institutional reforms or 24, medyo tumaas. 3 ang nagsabi na government subsidies. 35 ang nagsabing improved interagency coordination. At 7 ang nagsabing private sector involvement. Ayan. So malalaman natin ang sagot sa discussion na ito. Thank you everyone for those who have participated. Let us know your thoughts in today's discussion. Pakigamit lang po ang ating official hashtag for today. Hashtag sustainable agriculture, hashtag organic farming, or hashtag agri-reform PH. So kung kayo po ay magte-take ng picture or magdi-discuss on your own Facebook page, tag us, ano? At i-continue natin ang discussion na ito even after the webinar. So without further ado, let us proceed with the presentations. Yeah, so our first study is titled Repurposing Rights to Expand Public Access to Water, the case of the National Irrigation Administration. And this is authored by PIDS Senior Research Fellow Dr. Roehlano Briones and Research Analyst Amerah Azis. So the study examines how rethinking irrigation water rights and improving interagency coordination can improve water access for households. So please allow me to introduce our presenters. Dr. Briones specializes in agricultural policy and has authored extensive research on agriculture, rural development, and international trade. He has served as a consultant for international agencies and taught at both Ateneo and University of the Philippines, Los Baños. A PhD graduate of the UP School of Economics, he was recognized as UPLB's Outstanding Alumnus for Economics and Public Policy in 2017. Ms. Amerah Azis is a research analyst at PIDS and a graduate of BA Development Studies program at UP Manila. So, alongside Dr. Briones is Ms. Azis, who will be helping us, explore more about the studies that they will be presenting. So let us now welcome Dr. Roehlano Briones and Ms. Amerah Azis as they present their findings.
Thanks, Mel, and good morning to everybody. And I'd like to mark this historic occasion as the first webinar being hosted by our new president. Welcome, Dr. Philip Arnold Tuanyo to PIDS. So our presentation is based on a policy notes with the same title, And I will be starting, and then I will hand it off to Myka, and then I will also be concluding this. For this policy notes, we have organized, next slide, as follows. Myka will be talking first about the rationale, and based on that rationale, delve a little bit more deeply into statistics, trends, and issues related to water use and access in the Philippines, as well as the existing policy environment. Then she will also delve a bit into prospects for water resource development after repurposing. She will be explaining this entire issue of repurposing, no? And then she will hand off back to me, and I will be discussing issues related to these prospects, as well as the implications for policy related to technical and financial implications, institutional implications, and informational implications. Without further ado, Myka, please.
Hi, yes. Good morning to everyone. Thank you po, sir. Next slide, please. So we will be starting with the rationale. First, the Philippines has a highly fragmented governance system for water resources. So according to a policy note from DepDev in 2024, excluding the National Water Resources Board, there are 21 agencies performing 14 different water-related functions. One of them is the National Irrigation Administration, who is responsible for irrigation development and management of the national irrigation systems. So over time, extensive water rights allocated to NIA have fallen below the actual water uptake for irrigation and have not been transferred to other users. Next slide, please. So to address the unutilized NIA water rights, a memorandum of agreement between the Water Resources Management Office under the Department of Environment and Natural Resources, NWRB and NIA was signed on October 4, 2023. So based on the MOA, NIA has been holding over 1.3 million liters per second of water rights for the purpose of irrigation, which much of this has gone unutilized. So the MOA provides for the multi-purpose use of the allocation to NIA, including the following: for domestic and municipal water, hydropower, floating solar use, aquaculture, industrial applications, and recreation/tourism. So this gives way for a significant opportunity to expand access for various stakeholders to invest in water development. So before we go into the prospects for development after repurposing this water right, we will briefly examine the water use and access in the Philippines and the policy environment surrounding it. Next slide, please. So this figure shows the proportion of households with safely managed water by use in the Philippines from 2000 to 2022. The blue line here indicates that progress in expanding access to safely managed drinking water in the Philippines has been slow. So to define what is safely managed water, there are three conditions. This is drinking water from the first improved water source that is located within the premises of the user. Second, this is available when the user needs it. And third, the drinking water is free from any fecal contamination. So meanwhile, this red line represents the access to safely managed sanitation, seeing faster improvement, which increased by 17.2 percentage points since 2000. So next slide, please. So another important metric to consider when it comes to the allocation of water is the volume of water permits. So this figure shows the volume of water permits from 2012 to 2022 based on selected consumptive uses. This excludes permits for power generation. So the total volume of consumptive water permits was nearly 91 million cubic meters in 2022. And it shows here that the irrigation share declined from 80% to 74%, the industrial share rose from 11% to 15%, and the municipal share remained consistent at 11%. Next slide, please. So for existing policies in the Philippines, we currently have the 1976 Water Code promulgated by the Presidential Decree 1067. So this is the presidential decree on consolidating laws involving water resources, which includes its appropriation, utilization, and development, among others. So one of the underlying principles of this water code is that the state may allow the use or development of waters by administrative concession in the form of water permits. So what about the amount of water that can be used or appropriated? The measure and limit is based on the principle of beneficial use. So according to Article 20 under the Water Code, this is the utilization of water in the right amount during the period that the water is needed for producing the benefits for which the water is appropriated. So even though there were adequate legal grounds to revoke and reassign the unutilized water rights of NIA, an amicable solution was reached through a MOA. It allows NIA to keep its rights while also permitting multiple use of its available facilities. Next slide, please. So since the water rights are up for multi-purpose use, we have options for expanded water use. One of which is the municipal water assigned to public water districts by law, Presidential Decree 198. So essentially, these public water districts, which are independent and controlled by LGUs, are authorized to acquire water rights, land and water works, and sell water to supply the water requirements of a community. However, a World Bank survey found that 47 LGU-run utilities, 68% were operating at a loss. So this is because of LGU subsidies for water utilities having low tariff setting while production costs are high. Next slide, please. So second is partnering with the private sector. So according to the 2021 Philippine Water Supply and Sanitation Master Plan, about half of the investments needed to achieve universal access will need to come from the private sector involvement. The Private-Public Partnership Code, or the PPP Code of 2023, has defined the legal framework for private investors involved in public infrastructure projects. This includes several considerations in the PPP project design, including feasibility, affordability, and value for money. So next slide, please. This table shows the NIA water rights converted and permanently non-restorable service area. So nationwide, based on the MOA, more than 1.3 million liters per second of NIA water rights have been covered on its repurposing based on an incomplete listing. So based on this figure, regions 3, 2, 1, 6, and 12 are the top 5 regions with the largest volumes of NIA water rights. So these are some of the areas that can be considered to have the greatest potential for repurposing. Next slide, please. So according to the WRMO, there have been over 100 parties that have expressed intentions to repurpose NIA water rights. So this indicates high interest from both public water districts and private investors alike. So in the public sector, MOAs have been signed with 10 LGUs encompassing water districts or group of water districts. Moreover, the provincial government of Cavite has signed a MOA for bulk water supply that includes the entire province of Cavite. Meanwhile, in the private sector, under the Maynilad water concession, cities of Bacoor and Imus and municipalities of Kawit, Noveleta, and Rosario has begun to source water from 4 out of 22 NIA dams located in the province. Next slide, please. So bulk water supply is a practical mechanism for repurposing NIA water rights. However, the private sector investment faces two key challenges. So for context, a minimum of 50,000 cubic meters per day is required to service about 50,000 households, which is about 300,000 to 350 individuals. So this is equivalent to several large municipalities or even a small province. So one challenge on the supply side is the availability of surface water and the cost of upgrading NIA facilities to meet domestic and municipal standards. So the existence of NIA water rights and some NIA facilities actually do not guarantee that water is readily available for household distribution. So to determine the conditions, including the preparedness of its facilities, this will require a hydrology assessment and engineering evaluations. So now I will pass the floor back to Dr. Briones for the demand side and the policy implications of this study.
All right. Sorry, I was having some trouble unmuting. Thanks, Mira. So on the demand side, on the challenges for private sector involvement in bulk water supply, so the idea is the water district should be able to accept the water supplied by the investor at a rate that will hopefully that they can sustain, right? And that they can turn around and charge to their consumers. So what's been probably happening or most likely to happen is that bulk water supply projects should undergo simultaneous negotiation with water districts while coordinating with relevant provincial LGU. So remember the quandary we had because there was an issue with 100% public provision through LGUs because they're mostly operating at a loss, and this is difficult to sustain financially. That's why we are inviting private sector in. But then again, private sector will also expect to be able to, at the very least, recover the cost of its investment and the operations for at least delivering water to the distributor. Next. So here is a potential test case. I think among the various letters of intent and so on, the most likely, the most advanced state of negotiations is probably the province of Cavite. So we visited them and we had an FGD with them. So this is likely a test case for a PPP arrangement for a bulk water supply for the province of Cavite, a very highly urbanized province, no? Especially the eastern side facing Metro Manila. There's already been a MOA signed between the provincial government of Cavite and NIA, unlike in many other areas where there's not even a MOA signed. And the intention is to repurpose 13 dams of NIA across the province for bulk water supply. So in our FGD, we uncovered at the time that we had it, I think it was late last year, perhaps if there's somebody from Cavite or from NIA now, they can update us. But as of the time of the FGD, the MOA could not be activated yet as NIA has not yet informed about the amount of water. Because remember, the priority under the MOA is farmer allocation. So there's still rice farmers, there's still farmers in Cavite that are still needing irrigation. So NIA needs to say, okay, we still need this much for irrigation water. And the remainder of the water rights are now available for multi-purpose use. But this has not yet been informed to the province of Cavite. Now, so that's the legal rights, right? But in fact, if you look at the actual dams and the utilization of the water from these dams, these are actually not, a lot of them are not being used for irrigation, going back to the original problem, right? NIA is sitting on top of a lot of water rights that are not actually being utilized. And because of that, decades of idleness and disuse, most, according to the province, are in dire need of rehabilitation and subsequent maintenance. And there are some initial estimates of up to 70 billion. So if a PPP investor if investor is coming in under PPP, they need to sort of plan to spend this amount. and have a headache about thinking how to recover that 70 billion. Now, of course, this will require careful feasibility study before anybody rushes in to plunk down 70 billion and worry about how to recover the cost. Interestingly, under the PPP code, there is now a provision being provided by the PPP Center called the Project Development and Monitoring Facility. So instead of the provincial government bearing the onus of doing this feasibility study, there is now support coming from the PPP Center itself for this kind of feasibility assessment. Next. Now, based on this experience, let's try to see whether we can draw, looking forward, some implications of how to take advantage of this opportunity being opened up by this MOA on repurposing NIA water rights. So not just province of Cavite, but all over the country where the repurposing might possibly happen, NIA and NWRB should undertake hydrologic assessment of first surface water requirements and resources, covered in the NIA water permits, both now, right? So you need to allocate it now, but also because of investments and future urbanization and future trends in agriculture and so on. This is also needs to look at future requirements. So project future precipitation trends, magkaka-drought ba yung area na yan in the long term? Yung nearby na ilog na nag-feed ng surface water, adequate ba yung supply niya in the next 20 years? Mga ganun ba? As well as projections of future agricultural and non-agricultural land use patterns in terms of watershed integrity and expansion of built-up areas. So, of course, the water supply, the nearby river system, will be drawing water from a watershed, or it will be fed water from a relevant watershed. So what are the prospects? Is that watershed still having the necessary integrity to be able to catch, say, rainwater precipitation and feed it into the surface water? Next. Now, so that's the purely technical, right? So you just make a projection, right? But there's also the institutional implications. In order to invite the private sector, there should be as we said, a mechanism for cost recovery. If you have a current mechanism where LGUs are setting their own rates, it may not be possible to have this. It may not be welcoming to the business climate for investors. Instead, if you have a nationally regulated tariff setting and service delivery set of regulations, this might be more promising in terms of inviting private sector investment. So a national regulatory board has been identified as a key institutional reform under the DepDev's Philippine Water Supply and Sanitation Master Plan. And we agree with this, And the tariff setting, rather than let's face it, being heavily politicized based on local interest groups or local politics, it should instead be based on fundamental pricing principles that are consistently applied on a rules-based manner nationwide. Next. Further on in the institutional implications, so government should undertake a programmed approach for implementing water supply projects. Maybe it's not possible to roll out all of these assessments and immediately impose these tariff setting. Maybe it can be rolled out, depending on which areas can go ahead based on feasibility assessment and on a prioritization scheme under the options outlined in the PPP code. So one of them includes blended financing. So blended financing, so this will require public funds, right? And that's an important option. And the public funds should be delivered on a priority basis, So to put it simply, blended finance is recognized under the PPP code, where finance is both coming from the private sector as well as government through through the budget, through the national budget, as well as possibly if there is interest from foreign donor agencies. And the idea of where the risk actually lies may have to also be discussed in terms of some kind of cost sharing arrangement, or sorry, risk sharing arrangement. Next. So all of this sounds very complicated, and actually, sa totoo lang, a lot of stakeholders remain confused, even with the very, just the idea of NIA water. A lot of people got excited, then they started sending these letters of intent, and then suddenly, oh, hindi pala ganun kalinaw. So there are informational implications as well. So with the support and leadership of the PPP Center, because they have the mandate under the law, concerned stakeholders, NIA, NWRB, LGUs, and of course, together with the private investors, should continue conducting roadshows to orient potential water suppliers and users. So indeed, PPP is currently sponsoring these forums, and in which, of course, stakeholders should express interest and actively participate, whether it involves government officials, private water companies, other private entities that will most likely eventually use the repurposed NIA water. Is there a next slide? All right, that was the last. Thanks for your listening.
Thank you, Dr. Briones and Miss Azis, for that presentation. No? You have illustrated how a smart, coordinated policy like repurposing idle water rights is really important to us. Instead of letting them rot in bureaucracy, we can unlock much needed water access for millions. No? But to make it work, sabi nyo nga, government needs to fix broken systems, price water realistically, and commit to evidence-based long-term planning. Ayan, maraming salamat, sir, for that presentation. And now, let's proceed to our next presenters. Ayan, so the next presentation naman focuses on a study that analyzes barriers to adoption, policy incentives, and factors to make organic fertilizers a scalable, sustainable norm in the Philippine agriculture. The study, titled Prospects for Widespread Adoption of Organic-Based Fertilizers in the Philippines, a Rapid Appraisal, is authored by Dr. Briones, Ms. Helena Luz Pastolero, and Miss Ivory Myka Galang. So let me introduce them first, no? Of course, I have introduced Dr. Briones a while back, so let's introduce Miss Pastolero. She is a project technical specialist at PIDS, involved in various agricultural research projects, and previously affiliated with other government agencies. She earned her bachelor's degree in agriculture from UPLB, where she is currently pursuing a master's in development management and governance. Ms. Galang is now a research associate 3 at the Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas Research Academy, and she has formerly served as a supervising research specialist at PIDS for over a decade. Ayan. So her research interest includes agricultural and rural development, macroeconomics, and financial economics. So we will begin the presentation with a recorded message from Ms. Galang, followed by live presentations from Dr. Briones and Ms. Pastolero. Okay, so the floor is yours now.
Good morning, everyone. We hope you're all doing well and that you've already had your breakfast. Maybe you had rice with egg, or if you're health conscious, perhaps some fruits too. Now, where did you put the eggshells? What about the fruit peelings? Did you just throw them away? So, these questions are connected to our topic for today. It's something many of you might already be familiar with. Maybe you've done a composting project in school, or maybe you've tried making your own organic fertilizer at home if you have a backyard. So, in this presentation, we'll explore the different types of fertilizers, some that support plant growth and protect the environment, and others that can be harmful. So, just to give you a quick preview of our findings, we discovered that a sustainable approach to agricultural production in the country involves a science based strategy, one that uses both organic and inorganic fertilizers, depending on what the soil needs in order to nourish plants effectively. And this is what we call the balanced fertilization strategy, and we'll be learning more about it shortly. I'm Ivory, and I'll begin the discussion by covering the background of our study, why we're undertaking it, our methodology, the relevant government policies and programs. After that, Helena will take over to discuss the science behind organic agriculture, as she's our team's agri scientist. And finally, Dr. Briones, our agricultural economics expert, will synthesize our findings and deliver the concluding remarks. So we know that modern conventional agriculture heavily relies on chemical fertilizers to achieve higher crop yields in order to meet the food demands of a growing global population. However, there is an increasing concern about the sustainability of this approach due to its detrimental ecological and economic impacts. Remember in 2021 and 2022, when the price of inorganic fertilizers surged to as much as 3,000 pesos per sack, and that's triple the usual price. This prompted renewed interest in alternatives such as nature based farming and the use of organic based fertilizers. In response, the government implemented measures to safeguard food security, primarily by providing subsidies to farmers, and these subsidies were mostly used to purchase inorganic fertilizers. So, a key policy issue here is how the government can strike a balance between ensuring short term food security, promoting long term sustainable farming practices, and while keeping public spending under control. So, our study aims to rapidly assess the current state and potential for expanding organic fertilizer use in the Philippines. And we explore key policy questions such as how widely are organic fertilizers used, and what drives or hinders adoption, what is the supply potential, and how affordable and available are these fertilizers. What are the prospects for wider use among farmers, and what government programs, policies, and directions are shaping this landscape? Now let's discuss some key trends. Crop and fertilizer use have grown sharply since 1961. On the left hand panel, we see rice, maize, and banana production surge multiple times, while fertilizer use on the right hand side, namely nitrogen, phosphate, and potash, rose over fivefold. So in this slide, we see that the most commonly applied inorganic fertilizers are nitrogenous and complete fertilizers. Interestingly, many farmers still use organic based fertilizers, and according to a 2022 survey, 37% apply organic fertilizers. As for our methodology, we use a demand supply framework to study organic fertilizer adoption. Demand is driven by expected farm benefits, while supply varies by scale, that's individual, community, or commercial scale. The producers weigh costs against private and environmental benefits, with government policies like subsidies and extension services helping to balance these trade offs. Now, we used a rapid appraisal approach through desk reviews and interviews with key stakeholders, mainly the producers and government agencies at various levels. And to find organic fertilizer producers, who are usually also the users, we compiled a list of farmer organizations from DA and other agencies, then focused on areas in Luzon, Visayas, and Mindanao with the most number of farmer organizations. So LGUs willing to help us were asked to reach out to these groups, including those using organic only, inorganic only, or both organic and inorganic fertilizers. So, for commercial producers, we contacted companies near NCR and Region 4A using the lists from FPA and UPLB. So, before discussing the programs related to fertilizers, let's just review some concepts. So, using too much chemical fertilizer in conventional farming can damage the soil over time, making it less healthy and productive. It leads to problems like loss of nutrients, salt buildup, and fewer helpful microbes in the soil. And due to the disadvantages of inorganic fertilizers, various alternative farming systems have emerged. Examples are agroecology, organic farming, and integrated nutrient management, which focus on sustainability and soil health using fewer external inputs. These systems rely on organic fertilizers, which improve soil quality and provide slow, steady nutrient release. The Integrated Nutrient Management, or INM, combines both organic and inorganic fertilizers to improve crop yields while maintaining soil health and minimizing environmental impact. Although effective, the INM requires site specific recommendations and regular monitoring, which can make adoption more challenging for farmers, especially smallholder farmers. Now let's talk about the policies. The fertilizer industry has been regulated since the 1970s, with the latest landmark legislation being the Organic Agriculture Act of 2010. The Agriculture Act of 2010 promotes a farming that improves soil fertility, reduces pollution, and avoids synthetic fertilizers. And since it was passed in 2010, certified organic farm area remains small. But we see that there's been a big jump, 8 times more, in the production of organic soil amendments from 2012 to 2022. Now, there are two DA agencies in charge of fertilizer regulation. So, the BAFS, or the Bureau of Agriculture and Fisheries Standards, sets organic standards under the Philippine national standards and accredits organic certification bodies. So, the Memorandum Circular Number 10, Series of 2023, places organic soil amendments and biocontrol agents under the jurisdiction of BAFS. On the other hand, the FPA oversees chemical based fertilizers. However, the memorandum circular does not cover biofertilizers, which are fertilizers not labeled as organic, and thus they remain under the FPA's regulation. With RA 11511, the Organic Agriculture Act Amendment, the problem on high certification costs was addressed through PGS, or the Participatory Guarantee System. It allows smallholders to get certified through a community based process. The Department of Agriculture promotes organic and balanced fertilization through two key programs: the National Organic Agriculture Program, or NOAP, and the Balanced Fertilization Strategy, or BFS. The NOAP supports the promotion and commercialization of organic farming, including composting facilities for smallholders and LGUs. It is overseen by the National Agriculture Board, with BAFS as the lead implementing agency. The Balanced Fertilization Strategy, or BFS, on the other hand, encourages a science based, site specific mix of organic and inorganic fertilizers to improve soil health and crop yields. It is implemented through the National Rice Program. Since 2023, the program's fertilizer voucher provides 1,500 pesos per hectare for biofertilizers or microbial inoculants, out of a total allocation of 5,500 pesos per hectare to promote more sustainable fertilization practices in rice production. And that's it for me. I now turn you over to Helena.
Uh, Thank you to Ms. Ivory for providing us with the background of our study. So, okay. So for the second part of our discussion, we now turn to the topic of shifting to organic agriculture. So can organic agriculture feed the Philippines? Well, we believe no study has been done to conclusively answer the question based on the availability of organic sources in the Philippines. So while organic agriculture can improve net income, it faces constraints on sourcing materials and labor. We consulted with experts from UPLB led by Dr. Edna Aguilar to do some calculations on organic materials and the required NPK or nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium quantities as shown on the table on the left. So these are plant nutrient imports and the required matching NPK quantities from the different organic sources in 2023 in tons. So the limiting factor for each source is nitrogen, with swine manure requiring the lowest quantity at 37.6 million tons due to its already high nitrogen content. On the other hand, we see that dried cocoa husk requires 2.15 billion tons, a very large amount compared to the other organic sources. So these calculations do not even take into account the differences in mineralization rates. And looking at the local supply of organic materials, unfortunately po, it is inadequate to fully shift to organic agriculture. As you can see on the table on the right, this shows the total organic nitrogen available from these organic materials, and it only equates to 0.49%. So this means that these organic materials simply cannot deliver the same amount of nitrogen as compared to imported inorganic fertilizers in 2023. So the less than 1% total available nitrogen is not enough to be solely used for farming, much more for other uses, because locally produced organic materials are already being utilized in agriculture, animal feeds, and other industrial uses. Next slide, please. So what's the alternative for this? And now we turn to the benefits of shifting to integrated nutrient management. So not only is the FPA, the DA, and other government agencies recommend the balanced fertilization strategy through integrated nutrient management, here we also have some studies on INM saying that it can address the increasing cost of inorganic fertilizers and other environmental concerns. So the first study in upland corn in Inapacan Leyte shows that INM can enhance soil quality and increase crop yields with the use of combined organic fertilizers. In the study, they used chicken dung and vermicast with inorganic fertilizers. The second study by Phil Rice found that the use of inorganic fertilizers, biofertilizers, and biostimulants generated the highest net income in both the dry and wet season at 79,000 and 58,000 pesos per hectare, respectively. And finally, the practice of a site-specific nutrient management in cabbage production showed that understanding the different farmers' practices enable them to build their own tactical knowledge, which can promote sustainable farming practices and reduce environmental impact. So this was actually true for the farmers we interviewed because some of them preferred to use only inorganic fertilizers, some only preferred to use purely organic fertilizers, while some use a combination of these fertilizers based on the availability of organic materials and inorganic fertilizers in their local communities. Next slide, please. Okay, so what are these types of organic fertilizers? Here we have some definitions of the types of these organic-based fertilizers from the Philippine National Standards for Organic Soil Amendments by BAFS, or the Bureau of Agriculture and Fisheries Standards. So organic fertilizers come in either solid or liquid forms from fully decomposed plant or animal materials. So the keyword here is fully decomposed. Another is the soil conditioner or soil amendments like biochar, which has been gaining traction in the field of alternatives to conventional farming. Also, we have organic plant supplements, which many of the farmers we interviewed use for their own household farms. Examples of this are fermented plant and fruit juices, which they themselves produce using plant and fruit materials that they collect. We'll also have fish amino acid, vermi and vermicompost. So all of these organic-based fertilizers need to adhere to the regulations set by BAPS to ensure quality and safe production, regardless of its scale. So even if it's at the individual or large scale, um, all farmers need to adhere to these strict guidelines. So some considerations to this include the maturity of the compost. So this means that the compost has to have a fine texture, dark color, and an earthy smell. The proper CN ratio suitable for decomposition should also be considered. It also has to be pathogen free and lastly, fully decomposed. So a practical way to check the decomposition of an organic material, we have been advised by Dr. Manix Pedro from Biotech UPLB to check the MC or the moisture content by taking a handful and squeezing it with a handful of the substrate and squeezing it with a hard grip. So if there's the water that drips down, then the material still has too much water and needs to undergo further decomposition. So next slide, please. Here we have the classification of biostimulants. So for the interest of time, we will not be discussing the technical definitions of each biostimulant, but biostimulants are natural substances or helpful microbes that when applied to plants or soil, it helps plants grow better by using nutrients more efficiently, handle stress, and improve the overall quality. So good examples of these are trichoderma and BioN, developed by UPLB researchers Dr. Virginia Cuevas and Dr. Mercedes Garcia, which are microbial inoculants. So there are a variety of organic-based fertilizers that farmers can choose from based on their preferences, available materials, and of course, the cost and labor of collecting these materials. So that's it for me in the discussion. Let me now give the floor to Dr. Briones for the synthesis of our findings.
Thanks, Helena. Helena, by the way, is a licensed agriculturist. So if asked officially, maybe I should say that Helena is the lead investigator here, so that I will not run afoul of the New Republic Act 12215. I am just being naughty. This is a big discussion in agricultural policy in the past couple of weeks. Anyway, returning to this topic. So we earlier, Ivory had talked about the supply and the demand, right? So and then Helena has basically talked a little bit about the supply side. Here are now the demand side implications, or looking at the potential sources of demand. So a major source of demand for organic-based fertilizers are actually the organic growers themselves who are being promoted under the NOAA. And they apply a large variety. So when we went around doing our rapid appraisal, yeah, actually there's a very large variety. Vermicompost is a common one, but there are also many others. Collecting carabao droppings, collecting chicken manure, and so on. Now, many of these organic growers, when we asked them, they said, well, it was not immediate, but most of them said they're able to replicate or even improve upon the yields obtained under conventional farming. However, in fact, despite this, when asked about whether a lot of farmers are switching to organic farming, they say no. There's just a small, narrow market segment in many localities that have actually been convinced and have adopted organic farming. Next. So other demand sources, maybe if that's too weak, maybe even conventional farmers who are moving to a more balanced fertilization strategy, they could potentially be a source of demand. So among major temporary crops, farmers tend to rely mostly or entirely on organic fertilizers. So so the rice and the corn, we didn't really see a lot. At least if you look at the national statistics, still mostly chemical fertilizers. The exception among temporary crops is vegetable farming. Now, it's not fully organic, but we see an adoption, considerable adoption of combination of both application of manure, mostly chicken manure, in fact, and regular fertilizers, chemical fertilizers. Now, when we do see rice, corn, and other temporary crops applying these organic-based fertilizers, it's normally because there's a nearby source. So sugarcane farms, they would apply cakes, no, excess waste materials from a nearby sugarcane mill. But if they're very far away, then they still rely 100% on inorganic fertilizer. The exception we found was corn farmers in Bicol. Despite wide distances from the nearby chicken farm, they still spend, because they say chemical fertilizers simply don't work in the volcanic soils of Bicol region, at least in terms of growing corn. Now, commercial organic fertilizers, so organic or biofertilizers, they are applied, but often when they are provided for free by government. So that's another impetus for the demand, no? So the significant market for fertilizer producers is government itself. So the government procures organic-based fertilizers and then distributes it as part of its fertilizer subsidy scheme. Now, when we went around, it turns out that rather than if you listen to agricultural courses, they will have a very scientific way of doing this integrated nutrient management. But if you look at the actual farmers' practice, it's based mostly on tradition. So they have a traditional way of combining chemical, say among vegetable farmers, chemical fertilizer and chicken manure, and then they have their own notion of what is the correct ratio given their soil, and that's what they do, rather than going through soil analysis and a more precisely formulated combination for their BFS, balanced fertilization strategy. Next. So where does the supply come from? Organic growers are actively producing their own fertilizers. So this is the farm and household production. Commercial production is a little bit less common, although we have observed cooperatives and micro enterprises in rural areas engaged in the production. So for instance, they do a fairly sizable vermicomposting activity, and then the excess vermicompost and vermicast they sell off, to other farmers. Now, there are more sophisticated products, such as microbial inoculants made by small and medium enterprises and even a few large companies. Recently, a Bio-N microbial inoculant has opened in Laguna, and it's producing at quite a significant scale, no? The ASI Corporation. So these large-scale operations are, of course, able to take advantage of economies of scale. No? When you have a large plant, that's a high investment cost. And unless you have a large output to sell, then it doesn't pay to make that investment. Next. Now, moving on to our assessment based on rapid appraisal of the policies and programs. So we did observe, even in the community level, that the NOAP focuses on dissemination of organic farming, livelihood support for those who want to make a switch to organic farming, as well as the push for community-based certification, because the government wants to promote an organically labeled, genuine, authentic, organically labeled within its own laws, not necessarily the organic label using those high-tech certification with very strict standards, but based on its PGS system. But government is also actively promoting BFS, the Balanced Fertilization Strategy, through input support and extension service. Although, in fact, when you talk to most extension workers, say in LGUs, they're still highly focused on inorganic fertilizers, on chemical fertilizers. Now, one issue that has hounded these biofertilizers and that space is issues of regulation and competition. So some stakeholders have expressed, frankly, I don't know if FPA is listening here, some frustrations in getting the hurdling the regulatory requirements of the FPA. And previously, before the PGS, there were also misgivings about the BAF's organic certification standards. But the PGS has actually relieved a lot of that. And also, in the issue of procurement, we were told that it's not clear that there was a real competition in being able to supply government. So I have no scientific assessment of this, but this is what the stakeholders have communicated. Next. So let us sort of move on into the conclusion by summarizing some key applications or key observations. Now, nutrient application in Philippine agriculture admittedly still dominated by chemical fertilizers. Although we found out that organic-based fertilizer, not necessarily the technical organic fertilizer, but at least, organic-based fertilizers is actually quite common. The Philippines does have a large supply potential for these types of fertilizers. Although this should not be overestimated because a limiting factor is availability of the crop residues, of the livestock wastes, as well as the cost of gathering and collecting these raw materials. Policies and programs have tried to support BFS and organic agriculture, but in fact, if you look at the bulk of the budget allocation, it's still heavily skewed in favor of inorganic chemical fertilizers. Next. So based on this, what do we imply for government policy? We recommend strengthening the National Organic Agricultural Program by expanding, rolling out more actively the implementation of PGS, so greater budgetary and programmatic support, as well as aggressively rolling out organic labeling. So dapat magkasabay yung dalawang yan eh. In fact, that's the reason why we want to carve out a market segment that consumers can bank on as being organically certified even under the PGS scheme. Now, one drawback of the PGS scheme is that this is not internationally recognized as organic. But first, we should grow our own domestic market, right? And then we can possibly think of the overseas market. We also need, as a second implication, to review the regulatory system and competition oversight for organic fertilizers, especially the companies, the large companies in the space of provision of organic fertilizers and even of inorganic fertilizers. So there's also, I should have probably also mentioned that there's a bias in favor of inorganic fertilizers, largely because of the lobbying and campaigning of these chemical fertilizer companies. Now, I kept harping on the large inorganic fertilizer subsidy. I would recommend, or our study recommends, phased repurposing of the fertilizer subsidy. So maybe not completely terminate the fertilizer subsidy, although there are many arguments actually in favor of terminating such subsidies. No, why is the taxpayer being asked to fund the provision of private goods? But rather than completely terminate it, why don't we repurpose it towards a kind of fertilizer product that is more amenable to long-term sustainability, soil health, and human health? So repurposing that towards organic fertilizers and biofertilizers. Part of the repurposing is not merely more subsidies, so vouchers to farmers or free giveaways to farmers, but rather the funds from the subsidy could be made available for area-based research and development and extension to promote adaptive BFS, because there's a lot of site-specific nutrient management that needs to be undertaken in order to realistically adopt this all over the country. This will also entail mapping the soils of all the land in the country. We were astounded to realize that the last time we mapped soils, I think, was about the time I was born, the 70s. And we don't have an updated, comprehensive soil map of the country. We do have soil maps related to various commodity programs in selected areas. So we encountered provinces where they claimed they have a soil map. Then it turns out the soil map was limited to corn growing areas because that particular province got an allocation from the National Corn Program. So you have, basically you have patches of profiled soils where they're growing corn. But what we need is the entire province, right? All of the agricultural land in that province, or in fact of the entire country, being well profiled systematically and comprehensively in terms of crop suitability, types of soil, soil health, and all of these other related parameters. Then we can more aggressively roll out this SSNM and INM related strategy. Next. So, okay, so I already mentioned about extension. On the supply side of organic-based fertilizers, there should be a value chain program. So, because the industry is a whole thing. It's not just the production of the fertilizer. It's about packaging it and distributing it to farmers. And it starts from the sourcing of raw materials. So that entire value chain, that needs to be promoted under an integrated value chain program for biofertilizers and the organic fertilizer industry. So we can anchor that program on support for commercial networks of private corporations, but not necessarily just private corporations, capacitated farmer organizations who are willing to make investments, as well as coordinated with the distribution of organic fertilizer and biofertilizer vouchers. So it's the entire chain. Even government can leverage its subsidies, at least a part of its subsidies, to create markets for these emerging infant industry for the biofertilizer and organic fertilizer market. And it will do well to have a value chain program looking at the entirety from the raw material to the demand. Now, talking about raw materials, that value chain development must also exist side by side with the development of a livestock, poultry, and agro-processing industry, because these are the sources of raw materials, right? So for instance, when you locate organic fertilizer plant, you may want to cluster it near, say, agglomerations of livestock producers. And in fact, in the private sector, we have seen a few examples of this in Batangas. So this is kind of thing that government would probably like to scope out and study and review and assess for its own potential investment of public sector funds. So I believe that is our last slide. Yes, thank you again for listening.
Thank you, Dr. Briones, Miss Azis, and Miss Pastolero, and Miss Galang for that wonderful presentation. So we have learned, no, from the last presenters, the future of Philippine agriculture lies not in choosing between organic or inorganic, but in designing smarter nutrient strategies that blend both, backed by better policy, better science, and better incentives. Or we can strengthen NOAP, no? Shout out to our friends from the National Organic Agriculture Program. They are here. I've seen quite a few names, familiar names from NOAP. Hello. Sana po ay maka-engage kayo with our discussion in a little while, no? And also, let me greet our friends from the Department of Agriculture, Philippine Council for Agriculture and Fisheries, our Agriculture and Fishery Council officers and members, our friends from the Office of Provincial Agriculture of Tarlac and Quezon Province. Hello, good morning everyone. So, para naman po sa ating mga Facebook Live viewers, as we've mentioned before, e-certificates are now available whether you stay with us until the end of today's discussion or you watch later using our replay on demand feature. You can still earn your certificate. So just scan the QR code during the replay and answer a quick quiz. Mabilis lang po ito. The quiz will be about the discussion, no? The presentations for today. So the link is also posted in the comment section of this live feed. Viewers who complete the quiz by 10 p.m. will receive e-certificates by email. Automatic po ito. Basta matapos po ninyo ang pop quiz. So para naman po sa ating mga kasama sa Zoom, You'll also have the opportunity to earn an e-certificate by completing our feedback survey near the end of the program. So wag po kayong aalis. Marami pa po tayong pag-uusapan. So once submitted, your certificate of participation will be automatically generated. So be sure to stay tuned and don't miss it. So Dr. Briones, please stay at meron po tayong mga discussions pa in a while at kakailanganin po natin ang inyong expertise. So now, palawigin naman natin ang usapan. We have invited two expert discussants to share insights and hands-on experiences related to the challenges of food and water security in the Philippines. And our first discussant is Attorney Mary Annabel F. Cruz Domingo from the Office of the Legal Services of the National Irrigation Administration. Attorney Bell is a native of Dagupan City, Pangasinan. She earned her bachelor's degree in community development from UP Diliman and her Juris Doctor degree from New Era University College of Law. She passed the 2016 bar exams and has since built a career spanning community development, corporate law, and public service, currently serving as attorney for in the Legal Services Department of NIA. So let us hear your insights, Attorney Bell.
Good morning po, everyone. So,
Morning.
good morning po. So next slide, please. So, I would start with introducing the National Irrigation Administration. So we are a government-owned and controlled corporation created under Republic Act number 3601 and is primarily responsible for irrigation development and management. It's also a corporation empowered to purchase, receive, take, or grant, hold, convey, lease, mortgage, and otherwise deal with its own real personal assets and properties. With NIA's mandate to formulate and adopt policies for the management and operation of its assets and irrigation areas, it has prescribed rules and regulations governing the manner in which it will conduct its general business, taking into consideration its primary mandate, which is irrigation. There were thorough and comprehensive surveys done to pick the potential sites where number of them are canals and dams included and are suitable for multipurpose. Next slide po. There are activities that were started by NIA, including the determination and selection of potential and capable investor partners. In the process of accreditation of interested and adept renewable energy developers, bulk water, conveyance of water, aquaculture, aquasports, and ecotourism, domestic use, among others. So NIA carefully screened and chose the qualified company partners for these projects. The task is to identify and determine potential sites for the establishment of operational mini electric power plants in the NIA-owned and administered irrigation systems and non-hydroelectric renewable energy related projects. Next slide po. So as I've said, there were thorough and comprehensive surveys done to pick the potential sites where it will include the canals and dams that which will show that they are capable and suitable for operational of power plants, bulk water, and other potential use for general welfare. And working on NIA's mandate to include construction of multipurpose water resources projects designed primarily for irrigation and secondarily for hydraulic power and development, plans and designs of experts were consulted for plant construction and in close coordination with other government agencies that they were able to come up with viable projects. At present, we have the three big multipurpose dams, which includes the Magat Dam or the um, Magat River Dam Integrated Irrigation System and the Upper Pampanga River Integrated Irrigation System or the UPRIS, and currently is the JRMP project or the Halaur multipurpose dam in Iloilo City. Next po. As a result of this endeavor, big firms and competitive companies responded to the call of the government and participated in the development of renewable energy and its generation. In response, NIA crafted the first policies and framework to promote transparency, accountability, competitiveness, for and in order that NIA obtains the most reasonable benefits from these projects. NIA, in its activities and programs, supervise and monitor the activities. NIA was also asked to consider by companies with projects for ecotourism promotions, like partnerships in water sports facilities in NIA reservoir areas, beautification and development of idle lands, and properties with potential partnership with organic farm owners. Among the few accepted proposals for potential projects that will help NIA to have an income generating projects which will help also support the delivery of services to the Filipino farmers. Next po. With this, the NIA Special Lease Guidelines was approved through NIA Memorandum Circular number 128 series of 2021 and was further strengthened by NIA Memorandum Circular 132 series of 2023. The lease guidelines is adopted pursuant to NIA's authority and mandate under its charter, which shall affect future lease agreements for the purpose of advancing the agency's corporate interests through the multi-purpose utilization of its irrigation facilities, properties, and assets. Next po. The guidelines will set forth the general procedure to be observed by the agency in entering into lease agreements and memorandum of agreements with private developers involving its properties and assets, including the lands and buildings for commercial purposes, the irrigation facilities and or lands for commercial purposes, the irrigation facilities and lands for hydropower and other renewable energy, and finally, conveyance of water for domestic use or the municipal use. The NIA's processes and guidelines aims to reflect the standardized, the simple, and reliable guidelines to be anchored upon by the parties. The ultimate goal is to have NIA become one of the primary government-owned and controlled corporation promoting renewable energy resources and utilization in support to climate change program development of the country and government instrument ready to manage its real property assets. Next po. Thank you po. In addition to as one of the priority projects of the administration, presently there are two bills in the Congress, the Senate Bill number 2771 and House Bill number 9663, approved in third reading in 12 December of 2023. These bills, which has been identified as a priority legislation by the current administration, seeks to establish a comprehensive framework for water resources management in the Philippines by streamlining the functions of executive agencies, and their capability to handle their functions relative to water resources management or the creation of the Department of Waters. In an article published in September 25, 2024, one of the arguments made by the President of the Philippines that water problem that as a priority, flood control can be directly provided to NIA as one of the coordinating agencies in the management of water. But in the creation of the Department of Waters and Resources and the Water Regulatory Commission, NIA remains to be an attached agency. So the president further argued that water problem which is flooding and irrigation, cannot be solved as on a piecemeal level and should be given a comprehensive plan side by side. So um, this this these are the legislations made. Thank you.
Thank you, Attorney Bell, for that insight that you shared with us. Ano, excited ako dun sa Department of Water. Sana po ay this time around maging priority bill na siya talaga at tuluyan na siyang maisabatas. Ano. So napakaganda ng ating usapan ngayon. Again, we invite you to share your thoughts in today's discussion. Pwede nyo kaming itag. Pwede kayong gumamit ng ating official hashtag na Sustainable Agriculture, hashtag Organic Farming, or hashtag AgriReformPH kung gusto nyong palawigin pa ang pag-uusap na ito even after this webinar. So let's now move on to our second and last discussant. She is Dr. Virginia C. Cuevas, a professor emeritus at the UPLB and academician of the National Academy of Science and Technology. She is a renowned botanist with a PhD in botany from UPLB and MS and BS degrees from UP Diliman. She developed trichoderma technologies for rapid composting, crop biofertilization, biocontrol, and bioremediation, earning prestigious awards such as the Metrobank Outstanding Teacher Award and the Hitachi Global Foundation Asia Innovation Award. So, let us welcome Dr. G. Cuevas as she shares her valuable insights. Dr. G.
Thank you very much for the introduction. Okay, so I'll be discussing the prospects for widespread adoption of organic-based fertilizers in the Philippines, a rapid appraisal, written by Dr. Briones and co-researchers. Next slide, please. Next, okay, so this is the outline of my presentation. I strongly support the recommendation by the paper of Dr. Briones. I'll be discussing some barriers to adoption mentioned in the paper and propose some solutions. Then I also will discuss some untapped plant resources because it was mentioned that there is a lack of materials for organic and the value chain. And then I will be presenting evidence for integrated development using the cooperatives, and then I have the conclusion. Next slide, please. I strongly support OBF because we have a very dismal situation. We are the world's largest rice importer in 2024, and DA spokesperson said that 1 million metric tons of palay because of El Nino, La Nina, and series of typhoons. The loss is because of this El Nino, La Nina phenomenon. And I would say that the NOAP is anchored on nourishing soil environment with sufficient organic matter, which is the adaptation to climate change, which is the answer to the problem presented by DA. Organic matter from compost increases soil water holding capacity and increases infiltration and movement, which are very important during drought. And also, organic matter will enhance soil health and enhances sustainability. Next slide, please. I will be presenting data that we have gathered in Mugpog, Marinduque, wherein we are there because we would like to address the problem of heavy metal contamination. Our strategy is to incorporate rice straw as a compost, plus the use of trichoderma microbial inoculant in combination with organic fertilizers. As you will see, in combination with chemical fertilizers, as you will see here, there is increasing water stress level such that in dry season 2019, there is a severe drought. And those fields, by the way, these are barangay level study, you have 2.2 tons per hectare, and those without the rice straw and compost and TMI, 0. And even those that are heavily contaminated, you will see that there is 1.9 tons per hectare and 0. So our data show that rice fields remain productive despite severe drought, which is an adaptation to climate change. And we see here that fields show resilience when the intensity of drought decrease. So from 2.2, it becomes 3.7. From 1.9, it becomes 4.9. Next slide, please. Now, there is a mention in the paper that the question then, can organic agriculture feed the Philippines? And there are no studies that have been done in the Philippines. My PhD student has this data. The data that I will be presenting here would show that with good soil fertility, organic agriculture using TMI with rice straw compost and TNI can increase yield by 32 to 40% with 50% reduction in chemical fertilizer, equivalent to 8.1 tons per hectare from an inbred rice variety. 8.2 tons or 8.1 tons is already equivalent to the yield of hybrid. Now, I'd like to emphasize that here the soil is very fertile. Organic matter is already almost 5%, and the pH is almost 7, and very good CEC. Now, take note of here, this is a very good support to organic agriculture. With very high soil fertility, 0 input, notice that the yield is already 4.5 tons, wet season, 5 tons in Kapayang, and this is 3.2 and 4.9. By the way, all these barangay are still contaminated by heavy metal. Now look at this 3-4 with rice straw compost and 1/2 recommended chemical fertilizer and trichoderma microbial inoculant. Wet season is 6.5, dry season is 8.1, 4.9, wet season 8.2. So my recommendation is this: explore the line of research to determine the potential of organic agriculture with integrated nutrient management and TMI in feeding the Philippines. Next slide, please. Now, one of the barriers that was mentioned in the paper is labor-intensive requirements as a hindrance to widespread application for organic fertilizer. We have come up with a new technique of rice straw in situ composting that will be using 1 kilogram of Trichoderma harshanum plus 20 kilograms triple 14. But this triple 14 can be substituted with manures, and it will decompose in 14 to 21 days. And this rice straw compost can now be incorporated during dry season, during land preparation. And we have already proven that the PhD research of a PhD soil science student proved that there is rapid evolution of carbon dioxide, indicating rapid decay of rice straw in 17-14 days. So therefore, organic production system with INF, you have a minimal labor input, farmer-friendly composting in situ. So there is no need for high labor input, compatible with the use of activator and mechanized harvesting system of mechanized harvesting and the use of TMI. Next slide, please. Therefore, labor-intensive requirements as a hindrance to widespread application of in rice cropping can be solved by in situ rapid composting with the use of trichoderma activator. Next slide, please. Next slide. Next slide, please. Okay. Another barrier that was, two barriers that were mentioned in the paper, initial drop in yield is a major disincentive to adopting organic farming and prohibition of the use of chemical pesticide. Again, this is the result of the PhD soil science, this 2025. And this will be, the data will be from very recent, 2024 to 2025, wet and dry season on two areas. Here is rain-fed lowland. Notice that it is true that there is initial drop. Notice here 2.4. 2.5. With the use of rice straw plus TMI, you have 3.2. But rice straw plus TMI plus 50% is 4.3 tons per hectare, not significantly different from that of full recommended rate of chemical fertilizer. The same thing is true here, 4.5 with full recommendation, but 50% reduction, and TMI and rice straw compost is 4.10, which is not significantly different from that of 4.5. Now, notice that treatments 3 to 6 will use the in situ rapid composting, and notice that even here with 100% recommended rate, the yield is even lower than that of the 50%. Next slide, please. This is under rain-fed lowland condition. Very recent data, 24-25 wet and dry season. Notice that full recommended rate is 3.4, but 50% recommended rate with the use of compost and TMI, it's 3.17, again, not significantly different from that of full recommended. Here, wet season, 2.5, 2.67, again, not significantly different. And take note that from T3 to T6 would use the in situ rapid composting with trichoderma activator. Next slide, please. So therefore, the barriers, initial drop in yield, and prohibition of chemical pesticide, the possible solution is organic-based fertilizer, rapid composting with trichoderma activator, and INF with biofertilizer TMI, because TMI is an effective biocontrol agent, and therefore the barriers can be overcome. But what is important is good information dissemination with science-based data that can overcome these barriers. Next slide, please. Okay. Again, pointed out, one barrier is lack of plant raw materials that has hindered the formation of organic fertilizer value chain. I would say that we have untapped plant raw materials. Number one would be market waste. BSWM provides machine shredder and machine composter. Each LGU can avail of these machines, and this has been done in Mugpog, Marinduque. The Menro distributes the compost from market waste to the farmers. And one untapped raw material is the water hyacinth or water lily. Using these materials will solve environmental problems because massive pollution, population of water hyacinth clog rivers and waterways. By the way, water hyacinth is a very good scavenger of nitrogen and other fertilizers. We have analyzed this, and the water hyacinth has 4% nitrogen content. Next slide, please. So these are scenarios from Laguna de Bay, wherein you have so much raw materials. So lakeshore communities can form cooperatives with capital from LGU and machine shredder from BSWM, and they can tie up with piggery and poultry enterprises to produce organic fertilizer. Next slide, please. We have already utilized the water hyacinth compost. Using the activator, it was used as the sole culture medium for floating gardens in Masantol, Pampanga in 2019. You see, Masantol, Pampanga and Macabebe, Pampanga are always flooded. There are times that 4 months they are isolated, and there is a problem of food security. So these vegetable gardens was available for 16 months, and it served the community. Next slide, please. So therefore, possible solution, another policy recommendation is needed such that composting of water hyacinth can be integrated into the value chain in the crop production system in areas where they are causing massive environmental problem. LLDA, LGU, BSWF, Bureau of Fisheries, and LGA must formulate strategies to eliminate the problem and integrate the organic fertilizer production from water hyacinth to the value chain of crop production in the region where they are abundant. Next slide, please. Okay, I'll provide evidence to the recommendation of the paper. Integrate value chain development of organic fertilizer and biofertilizers with the development of livestock, poultry, and agro-processing industry. There were 2 paper presentations in the NAS Luzon Regional Scientific Meeting in Cavite just last May. Number 1 is Batangas Producers Cooperative, or the BEPCO, located in San Jose, Batangas. San Jose, Batangas is the egg basket of the Philippines, and this BEPCO has been registered in CDA since 2010. They're composed of farmers, feed millers, members of the related business in the egg industry. With the assistance from DA, BEPCO established the egg processing plant, and these are the products of BEPCO. Next slide, please. Next slide. Okay, so this is the sustainable closed loop, wherein all the materials and all the raw materials are presented, are channeled into, all the waste are utilized. Next slide, please. So you have here the poultry houses, and they are producing this kind of fertilizers from chicken manure. They also generate biogas from chicken manure. Next slide, please. The last slide, next slide would be CDIS, Integrated Agribusiness Corporation, presented also in the NAS RSM. So they have an integrated system. They are engaged in rice milling. They are getting rice, the palay from Mindoro. They are producing plants for feed mill. They have the poultry as well as the livestock, and they are producing organic fertilizers. Next slide, please. Next. Okay, so this is the kind of fertilizer that they are producing. These are certified by OCCP and registered with BAPS. And they are using materials, cocoa peat, mud press, and carbonized rice hull. And this is their cocoa plus fertilizer, Co-op Licas. Next slide, please, which is the last slide. Last slide, please. So, conclusion, beyond R&D, this is from the paper, DA must heavily invest in extension to promote widespread adoption of adaptive BFS. I would suggest that farmers have to be convinced to adopt in situ rice composting with trichoderma activator in preparation for El Nino event that occurs at the interval up to 3 years. By the way, DA, some laboratories are producing trichoderma activator, and so they can supply. If the paper's recommendations are properly implemented soon, we can reduce rice importation, and rice self-sufficiency is on the horizon. However, provided rice is not used as a political commodity. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Cuevas, for the positive outlook you have shared with us. Indeed, no massive dissemination of scientific data for local community adoption. Yeah, and so before we start the open forum, let me ask Dr. Briones, as the lead researcher for both studies, to share his thoughts on the discussants' comments. Dr. Roel, please.
Thanks, Mel. So, Attorney Cruz, your thoughts were very highly appreciated. So, in fact, the multipurpose use, although we mentioned all the purposes, we actually focused on municipal water supply. But you have rightly pointed out that another opportunity, probably a low-hanging fruit compared with municipal water supply, is actually hydro energy, no? I recognize now that as you were discussing it, that the renewable energy use actually has less of the water quality issues that is constraining perhaps, because for municipal water supply, obviously what you need to produce is potable water, which is less necessary for renewable energy projects. In addition, the burden of having to set aside some amount for irrigation use is again less of an issue because the renewable energy use is still available actually for irrigation. So I do recognize that. That said, it is still an interesting opportunity for many LGUs to also explore multipurpose use using municipal water and for for industrial development, also for industrial water. So that clarification or elaboration of what NIA's current initiatives are very much welcome. So we do need lawyers. Attorney Cruz was a lawyer, and we do need scientists. And I am very thankful for Dr. Cuevas, such a distinguished scientist and actually pioneer in this space of organic-based fertilizers. No, hence you saw although her path-breaking research was done way back, I believe 80s and 90s. Ma'am G, no, Professor Cuevas, but still, you can see publications 2022, 23, and then supervising PhD students, and it's very heartening to see that scientists are able to find more and more technological solutions to these various barriers and constraints that economists keep finding. No, so it's very heartening to note that labor intensity will be reduced because labor is increasingly getting scarce. No, that's in rural areas. That's okay. Actually, this leading to labor costs, labor wages going up. No, as seen in PSA figures, and also I think mentioned by Mel and Randy in the beginning. But nonetheless, that is going to raise the cost of our food, right? So the more you can contain the cost, the better for the consumers. So I noticed that this is of great potential, especially if we increasingly adopt, which has been happening now, combine harvesting in rice and corn areas, because that will leave the rice straw and the corn stalks in situ. And I understand that then you can use the trichoderma technology. So paano yung mga pinamumudmud ng BSWM na mga composter? Hindi naman mawawala, as pointed out by Dr. Cuevas. There are also places where the say the crop wastes or other wastes are anyway already gathered together, as she pointed out. The plant wastes in markets, they're already in one place, and that's where composting machinery and mechanized methods of organic fertilizer production might also be used, as well as, beside waterways, when you have piled up as a result the water hyacinths when there is an environmental cleanup operation. So these are very valuable technical solutions. It's less and less of a rocket science. It's a regular science, as long as I hope our decision makers can appreciate very quickly and see how we can roll out these solutions and convince farmers, attract farmers to be able to adopt these solutions, as she has pointed out. No, maybe instead of your practice of burning the rice straw, maybe you can actually just get some trichoderma and then following the practices as recommended, say, by UPLB, and see if you can implement this in situ decomposition of rice straw. So these are very exciting developments, just to show that although the problems are large, massive losses in our palay production, there are also technological solutions if we can get the information out and maybe help promote it. So that's just my comment. Maybe my co-authors would also like to contribute. At least see Mira and Helena.
Sige po, I'll go first po. First of all, thank you po kay Attorney Bell for sharing the side of NIA. when it comes to the reallocation of the excess NIA water rights, um, for us na mas napalalim po yung sa what current initiatives NIA are currently doing. And this is also a step towards highlighting po kung ano po yung pwedeng maging potentials for the water resource development in the Philippines po. And that's for my side.
Okay, well, so for me, I would like to thank Dr. Cuevas for sharing her insights about our project. So all of her insights are very valuable and helpful for us, also for our viewers. So as discussed, organic agriculture plays a significant role in expanding food security by promoting the sustainable farming practices. Because one, it builds farmer capacity and it also contributes to a better soil health and long-term productivity. However, to maximize the impact po sana of organic agriculture in sustainability, we hope that our policy recommendations will be taken into consideration for better market access and training resources for, especially for small scale farmers, because I would just like to add the farmers that we interviewed, most of them or many of them are very much willing to incorporate these organic materials in their own farming systems. So as long as we can assure or help these farmers, they can sustain their farming using these organic materials, I think it would be very helpful in the long term. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Briones and Ms. Galang, for your kind words.
Thank you, everyone, for those insights na shinare po ninyo, both the discussants and our presenters. Now, may we request Dr. Briones, Dr. Cuevas, and Attorney Bell to please turn on your cameras so we will have our Q&A, no? So we have a lot of questions in our Zoom Q&A box. So I hope that we can accommodate more and we can ask more questions and answer more questions as well. So to begin with, I'll read some pre-submitted questions. No, this is from Ambassador de Amerah from the Embassy of the Philippines in Mexico. This is not a question. This is an insight. No, I want to help contribute to food security, even if I am a city dweller. I might sorry, I might gain insight on how I can achieve this. So I hope, Ambassador, while listening to our discussion today, ay nakuha po natin kung ano kaya ang mga possibilities that we can do, even if you are a city dweller. And I hope that the discussion today will bring more um, insights, no, in your communities. So we have another question from Director Gutierrez of the Congressional Policy and Budget Research Department. I'd like to address this question to Dr. Briones. The question is, what are the implications of the lack of land use plan by the LGUs in semi-rural areas on organic farming?
Well, the land use issue affects all of agriculture. So to the extent that there's unjustified conversion of land use from agriculture to residential or commercial or industrial, then of course it will impact all agriculture, including organic agriculture or agriculture that uses organic-based fertilizer. That is a separate discussion. May I direct you to relevant PIDS research that is also touched upon the National Land Use Plan authored by Senior Fellow Adora Navarro.
Yes, it's available on our um, website. Okay, so now we have another question on water access from Jessica Cantos. The question is addressed to Attorney Bell. There is a long proposed legislation proposing the creation of the department to manage our water resources. You mentioned a while back about the Department of Water. I believe this is needed to increase and strengthen interagency coordination and have policy coherence. So what are your thoughts about the implementation of the water Department of Water, on how we can properly address issues on water access,
Yes
Attorney?
po. Thank you po. I was able to attend one of the focus group discussions on the creation of Department of Waters. And I think that primarily the issue will be the water itself, which includes the Department of Public Works and Highways, which presently manages the flood control. And then we also have the Department of Environment and Natural Resources as the lead agency in watershed management, and the Department of Interior and Local Government, DILG, for the water districts. So I think those three agencies will be greatly affected because they are the primary water sources of our country. And I think the matter of concern will be how um, how willing these agencies are to, for example, DPWH to give up the flood control, or a joint management with the National Irrigation, because our position is that instead of the flood water going to the directly to rivers and seas, we would want that the management of that water will also be used for the multi-purpose that I have mentioned earlier. So for the watershed management, I think DENR is primarily responsible for such, and the question will be if Department of Waters will be created, what are the boundaries and resolutions that will make the ENR give up the watershed management in favor of the Department of Waters. And same thing goes with the Department of Interior and Local Government, because as of the present, they are managing the local water districts. And if in the future Department of Waters will be created, also this will be all managed by the department itself. So I think yun po, that may be the one of the major challenges that this creation will entail. Thank
Attorney
you.
Bell, may I ask lang, no, as a follow-up question. You mentioned about the difficulties, no, of these agency in corroborating different mandates, no. Meron na po bang nagawang mga pag-uusap in the past, or while crafting the bills, kung papaano magkakaroon ng pagkakasunduan ang mga agencies na ito? Are you aware of those
Um,
talks?
yes po, that one focus group discussion was mainly to address po yung ganitong usapan, because primarily when the like for example, when the Department of Waters will be created, the NWRB will be, I think, will form part of the Department of Waters, and it will be abolished, or they will form part of the Department of Waters, but there will be no longer a National Water Resources Board, but Water Regulatory Commission. So for the Water Regulatory Commission, different agencies will be members of which, and it will become a governing board. So I think that's the first line of resolution for this uh, major ano po.
Major organizational change nga po yan,
Yes
attorney.
po, yes po.
Yeah, but just the same, we're hoping na ma-approve itong Department of Water para naman ma-address natin itong scarcity on water access and resources. So we have another question here, addressed to Dr. Cuevas. from an anonymous attendee, Dr. Cuevas. The question is, given the recommendation to strengthen the National Organic Agriculture Program, does this imply that NOAP should also take on regulatory functions related to organic agriculture?
Actually, I cannot answer that. I think Dr. Briones is in a better position to answer that.
So yeah, the regulatory agency is really the Bureau of Agriculture and Fisheries Standards, mandated under the National Organic Agriculture Act. No, the act is the one that establishes the NOAP to be under the oversight of the National Organic Aquaculture Board. So yes, there is already an existing regulatory agency under the overall oversight of the NOAB, and the implementing arm is the BAFs with respect to organic standards and certifications.
Okay, thank you for that response, Dr. Briones. My follow-up, have you considered introducing organic certified commercial fertilizers manufactured by Filipino-owned companies to the farmers nationwide via government procurement?
Yes, this is already happening. The DA does include biofertilizers and even organic fertilizers, depending on its annual budget and procurement, which is often divided by distinguished across the various regions. No, so this is already in place. Maybe you're asking more of this. Yes, that is part of what I advocate. Uh, Eventually graduate from providing chemical fertilizer subsidy and shift the composition towards biofertilizers and organic fertilizers for the sake of long-term sustainability and soil health.
Yeah. Thank you for that question and I hope nasagot yung tanong mo, Mr. Damaso Liwanag, Organic Agriculture Consultant. Ayan. So we have another question from Mr. Marvin Tejada of Eastern Regional Organization of Planning and Human Settlements, Philippines. But I'd like to address this question to Dr. Briones first and then to Dr. Cuevas second. Para makita natin yung insights ninyong dalawa. Ano po? There are some LGUs daw through their ecological solid waste management nagko-convert na ng compost materials into organic fertilizers and making it commercially viable to create revenue. Paano daw i-mainstream ito by increasing market? So, pareho kayong nagbanggit kanina about the supply chain. So, paano kaya ito? Mas palalawigin pa. Dr. Briones first and then Dr. Cueva second.
So it will depend, because that's why we have devolution, right? So each local government will autonomously decide. So we have observed local governments such as Naga City. They were really gung-ho on this. So the two key agencies or departments within each local government is typically the municipal or city agricultural office, and then the municipal or city environmental office. So in Naga City, they're setting the trend. Their Centro is promoting the composting of household wastes through the city dump. And then their city agriculture is also promoting both organic farming and integrated nutrient management, or BFS. That said, it was quite interesting to note that yung production ng city dump, yung composted city household waste, hindi nila pinapagamit for farming kasi daw maraming mga halo. Kaya mas maganda siguro talaga yung plant waste in markets for that purpose. And they're also while we were interviewing them, they were also in the middle of that creating that facility beside their public market for large scale composting to also assist the farmer. So how can we have more Nagas, right? All over the country. I guess more education, because we can't force them under the devolution law, but we can certainly encourage them, and as well encourage voters who are in general more in favor of progressive chief executives and sanggunians.
Okay, on my part, I think the LGU must first satisfy the requirements of Bureau of Agriculture and Fisheries standards in order to commercialize. Because you cannot commercialize unless you cannot have any license for commercial production unless you are you actually satisfy the requirements of Bureau of Agriculture and Fisheries standards. And then, of course, campaign, information dissemination of how good the use of organic fertilizer is. I think that is my answer to the question.
Thank you, Dr. Cuevas, for pointing that out. Sana nandito pa rin yung mga friends natin from the NOAP, no? Para it will help them, no? Do more campaigning of their advocacy. Yan. From anonymous attendee naman, Dr. Cuevas, sa iyo po ulit. If integrating manure accelerates the decomposition of rice straw and leads to a rapid release of carbon dioxide, doesn't that raise questions about its contribution to green gas emissions and its broader implications for climate change?
The amount of carbon dioxide evolution is very minimal with natural, because this is natural process of decomposition. It's not anything that would, the plants, the rice plants can actually absorb that carbon dioxide in the process of photosynthesis. So it's just a matter of recycling the carbon. Because what we are doing is just hastening the process of natural decomposition process. So I don't think it will add to global warming.
Okay. Thank you for that.
Just to reiterate the carbon cycle, right? Whatever was released from the rice plant through decomposition had been sequestered earlier by the same plant in the process of growth. So parang bigay, ano lang, kuha bigay lang. Ang delikado ay yung mga fossil fuel because they represent sequestration that happened over hundreds of millions of years. And then we're releasing it in a matter of 100 years. So that's the source of our problem.
If I may add, my advocacy for utilizing water hyacinth for composting is actually recycling of nutrients. The reason why we have massive growth of water hyacinth is because sediments and all nutrients from the terrestrial habitat are now the catch basin, are our water bodies of water, that stimulates the growth of water hyacinth. Now, if the water hyacinth would be composted and utilized as fertilizer, then all the nutrients that came from the upland or from the terrestrial habitat will be brought back to the land. And so we have just efficient nutrient cycling. And that's the beauty of organic agriculture, enhancing soil health and recycling the nutrients that makes the agriculture sustainable.
Okay.
Okay.
Dr. Cuevas, may related question dito on water hyacinth since you mentioned it. Since water hyacinth was mentioned as a component for a compost, nabasa daw niya that water hyacinth is well-known plant used in phytoremediation. Were there any laboratory tests conducted for heavy metal?
Yes. We have data to show that the roots of the water hyacinth can sequester heavy metals from nano. So in composting, it's the above ground biomass that should be utilized. I can serve as consultant for composting water hyacinth because I have we have already some experience on that. The root system can be composted separately, and the compost can be used for ornamental plants, not for crops. But the above ground, because plants has a very good way of sequestering heavy metals, even rice. Because in our study in Mugpog, heavy metals ang aming doon. But most of the heavy metals are contained in the root system. Above ground, very minimal. And even the grains have minimal heavy metals. So safe to eat those those crops raised in heavy metal contaminated lands. Now, the root system can be composted separately. Kasi malaki din yung root system, biomass ng root system. Kasi imagine, ang lalim ng tubig, ng sediments, especially during high tide. So, the root system can be composted separately and utilized for bamboo, for ornamental plants, etc. But the above ground would be safe.
Thank you for that clarification, Dr. Cuevas. Now we have another question from Emil Capsula. This is addressed to Attorney Bell. Gusto daw niyang makakuha ng insight on how good agricultural practices or yung tinatawag nating GAP and organic practice collaborate with regards to water policies and standards.
Thank you po. At present in NIA, we are doing the tree cropping, I think tree cropping calendar in order for us to address the food sustainability and helping our irrigators associations in the management and for their income po. So presently we have in some areas we provide for parang 29 peso na per kilo na rice. So we are getting those rice directly from the irrigators associations and cooperatives. And then we are also having upgraded equipments for like purchasing of LiDAR drones to see in our areas if whether or not the water are sufficiently utilized po, and yung mga iba na hindi nagtatanim sasabihin na there are no water in the area, but we upgraded our equipment to see and to address like it's called smart farming. I can not really discuss the technical side of the but bottom line po is so we are doing our best to manage the resources and uh, making the most out of the offices, because NIA as an agency, we have a wide in the country. We have our irrigation management office, we have our regional offices, so visible talaga yung NIA in almost all parts of the country. So
Yeah.
yun po. Thank you.
Thank you, Attorney Bell. Another question addressed to Dr. Briones. What are your policy recommendations on how the government, particularly the BAFs, can curb the proliferation of unregistered organic inputs na nabibili daw sa Facebook, Lazada, Shopee, mga ganyan, no? As I understand, BAFs and other DA agencies have limited or no police powers to immediately act on such products, leaving them with no choice but just to issue public advisories. So, any recommendations daw po, Dr. Briones?
Okay, we don't want to dissipate scarce government resources running after then there's no end of it, no? There are countless intellectual property theft, numerous other issues for all of these proliferated online shopping. And you know, kahit yung mga ukay-ukay, right? and whether it's online or in regular markets. So I think it's still a matter of advisory, education, making sure that consumers are properly educated to look for organic labeling, government certification, PS mark, right? Philippine standards mark. And actually that should be part of public education. I think DepEd. So I'm still going for the advisory way. Sorry, kasi we don't want to. I can see the problems of trying to police all of this.
Oo. And even if you police one, dadami ng dadami. Manganganak at manganganak yan, ano? Okay. So another last question na from Cheryl Kasiwan Laonyo. I'd like to address this question to Dr. Briones and of course to Attorney Bell. The question is, we have previous studies on farmer managed irrigation systems in upland, highland areas. We think the definition of irrigable area, not more than 3% or 8% slope, deprives these areas support for irrigation agricultural areas located in the highlands. BSWM budget is limited compared to NIA. What can be the policy options to increase support to farmer managed irrigation development? Dr. Briones first and then Dr. Bell. Attorney Bell, sorry.
Pwede bang baliktarin?
Regarding ko, sige, good. Attorney Bell, ikaw muna daw po. Because of the budget limitations ng BSWM, ano daw po kaya ang pwedeng magawa para sa mga farmer managed irrigation na nasa upland?
Okay po. Currently on the side, aside from our, we can be accessed through different social media platforms, and we have a currently today our administrator is inaugurating our first FM station in Region 2. So I think those platforms and other forms in media, they can access NIA, so that here in central office we can give instructions and orders in our offices, most especially in the depressed areas po, or the uphill. Thank you.
Nagbibigay po ba kayo ng mga grants, proposals, ganyan? If they have proposals po.
Um, I think through the irrigators associations po. Every year, we if they are members of the irrigators associations, the best and I'm sorry, irrigators association of the year receives a grant or prize for a particular project on this endeavor. So they can um go to the those associations and join membership, so that they can also be reached by the National Irrigation. Thank you po.
Thank you, Attorney Bell. Dr. Briones, your thoughts?
Yeah, so I think this goes back to what Attorney Cruz mentioned about water governance and potentially forming a Department of Water. Right? So if you take a picture of a communal irrigation system and a picture of a SWIP, and you swap the captions, I don't think anybody will tell the difference between the two. The SWIP is, by the way, the term used by BSWM, and CIS is the term used by NIA. To add to the confusion, such small-scale irrigation systems are actually under the legal mandate of the local governments.
Yeah.
So actually, there's a legal question on why there's even a BSWM or a NIA investing in this space when the law has already clearly mandated this to be under a function of local government. So again, this is, in the end, we're just serving the same client, right? The farmer in his or her various agroclimatic settings. So let's keep the eyes on that ball and make sure that we deliver the system, the services properly to that farmer, regardless of under whose hat we are delivering the services from.
Ito na nga yung sagot, yung Department of Water, para magkaroon ng delineation of tasks or mandates with regards to water access and resources. So now we're on in the final stretch of our program. Thank you very much, Dr. Briones, Dr. Cuevas, Dr. Attorney Bell Cruz Domingo, to our presenters from PIDS, Ms. Azis and Ms. Pastolero. Thank you so much for being with us today and sharing with us your research and your thoughts on this important topic, no? As much as we want to have more discussion about it, wala na po tayong oras. Once again, thank you very much to our panel for the valuable insights and to our audience for the active participation and for staying until this time. Let's give everyone a big round of applause. Yeah,
Mel,
so
konting
before...
overtime lang daw.
konting overtime. Sige,
Yeah,
go ahead.
just one message. There are some questions in the Q&A that I cannot answer. Hindi ako marunong sumagot using the chat. Alam naman niyo, matanda
sige,
na
sige.
ako. So, I can answer them. They can message me, G Cuevas, Messenger, GIE Cuevas, or email Dr. BC Cuevas at gmail.com. Kontakin na lang nila ako doon for the answers. Hindi kasi ako marunong sumagot dito sa chat box.
O baka gusto nyo pa, ma'am, meron na isang question, baka gusto nyo kahit isa, dalawa, sagutin natin. May question dito, where can we buy or avail of trichoderma for our field use?
Right now, Biospark Corporation is mass producing it. Please contact Biospark. May Facebook sila or meron sa Lazada. Yung question kasi kanina ay hindi ko masagot dahil hindi nga ako marunong. So just contact me by Messenger, GIE Cuevas at saka Dr. BC Cuevas at gmail.com. All small letters. Thank you.
Ito pa, isa pa. Are the floating vegetable gardens in Masantol, Pampanga still being practiced? Pwede daw ba nilang contact ang LGU?
No. Pwede lang kontakin ang concern. It's an NGO that tap my expertise to help them in the floating garden. Hindi na siya available ngayon. Hindi na. But we are trying to recommend that doon sa Macabebe and Masantol for the LGUs to adapt the system.
All right.
Pero wala pang concrete steps na nagagawa.
Okay. Thank you so much for that. Yung mga hindi natin nasagot sa Q&A, i-email namin kay Dr. Cuevas and then we will give each one a copy of the response. Ganun na lang po. All right.
Thank you.
So, ngayon, announce ko lang muna kasi every webinar naman natin meron tayong raffle, di ba? So, announce lang natin ang ating mga raffle winners. For those joining our event for the first time, ang PIDS po, we select 2 winners from the Zoom audience and 1 winner from Facebook. So, may tokens po na ipapadala sa inyo. So, just wait for our team to contact you to give your details, no? So from Zoom, ito ang nanalo, si Damaso Liwanag from Victory Global Unlimited Systems Incorporated. Congratulations. And we have Mr. Roldan Paragison from the Philippine Rural Reconstruction Movement. Yan, congratulations po. Sa Facebook naman, sana nandito ka pa nakikinig. Alexander Morados from Camiguin Polytechnic State College. Congratulations to all the winners. Hintayin po natin ang ating PIDS Tech Team to coordinate with you kung papaano po ninyo makiklaim ang inyong prize. So once again, we appreciate your attendance today. The speakers' presentations will be available at the PIDS website. Pakipuntahan lang po yung pids.gov.ph/events. Isusulat naman po ng ating tech team sa ating chat box ang website address para po mapuntahan po ninyo. You can download a copy of the presentations and the studies from the link provided in the Zoom chat box and Facebook comment section. So we want to hear your thoughts about today's program. Please help us improve our events by answering our feedback form through the link provided in the Zoom chat box. Sa mga nagtatanong po, kung meron pong certificate of participation ang nasa Zoom, eto na po ang pagkakataon ninyo. So, pakisagutan po ng ating feedback form at automatically pong makaka-receive kayo ng certificate after you have completed the feedback form. And then sa feedback and recommendations naman na gagawin ninyo for our improvement naman yan. So let us know your thoughts in today's discussion. Pa-share lang po ng post using our official hashtags, hashtag sustainable agriculture, hashtag organic farming, hashtag agri-reform-ph. Ipagpatuloy po natin ang usapan na ito kahit hindi na po webinar, no? Kahit bukas, mamaya, patuloy po natin pag-usapan nang sa ganon ay mas marami pong magkaroon ng interes at yung mga policy recommendations ng researchers natin at ng ating discussants ay magkaroon ng katuparan. Ayan. For our replay on demand, FB Live viewers, complete the pop quiz na minention ko earlier para naman makareceive kayo ng e-certificate. Again, para lang po ito sa mga Facebook users natin na hindi po nakatutok sa atin ngayong umaga dahil marami pong ginagawa. Alam naman natin na some of you are busy at gusto po ninyong i-replay na lang ang ating webinar today. Kaya ang participation nyo ay naandun sa quiz, no? It is one way to reinforce what we have learned today. And also, magkakaroon kayo ng Certificate of Participation to today's webinar. Hanggang 10 p.m. lang po ang pagsasubmit ng ating answers. So make sure not to miss it out. No? Keep in touch with us as well. Follow PIDS on Facebook, Twitter, or X, and YouTube channels for more updates. Paki-like and subscribe po kami. Feel free to visit our websites for more information. And we hope to have you again at our future events. Ito po, naka-flash on screen ang aming upcoming events on July 3, 17, and 22. Malaki-laking mga events po ito. Kaya po, paki-follow po ang aming Facebook page para po malaman kung paano po kayo magre-register. Visit our webpage, www.pids.gov.ph/events to learn the details of our upcoming events and to register. So today's discussion highlighted the critical importance of strengthening irrigation systems and scaling up sustainable organic farming practices as key strategies to address persistent food insecurity in the country. Sana po yung insights that we have shared today, from research findings to policy recommendations, will help guide future actions in building a more resilient, inclusive, and sustainable agricultural sector. We appreciate everyone who joined us for your active participation and thoughtful questions. And this has been your host, Melinda Quinones. Maraming salamat po sa inyong lahat. We look forward to welcome you again in our future PIDS webinars. Stay safe and have a wonderful day.